foot in both worlds, keeping it real with Tania and Nette. We're doing our hashtags Message from Spirit mini series. And today we're looking at hashtag psychic symbols. So this is quite interesting because when I saw this come through, psychic symbols, there were sort of a few elements that came through, and one's more like your little intuitive things like numbers, like people who see numbers all the time, or people who see like white feathers or symbols like that, birds that come up and actually things. I get butterflies and definitely dragonflies that will land on my hand. But also they showed me a box from one of the readings I did recently for someone. And so I'm guessing they want us to also talk a little bit about our mediumship and how we get symbols up that mean something to us, and then we can convert them in. And when you get symbols that actually mean something to the person, and as a medium, it's like, is this one for me? Is this one for them? You know,
yes,
that sort of
100%
stuff.
that happens. It's like they're showing me this, but I don't know if it's literal or figurative.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll be like, does this resonate with you? And they're like, no. And then I'm like, okay, so then I'll like, let's say it's a rainbow. A rainbow will mean hope for me. If a rainbow shows up, it's like, no, you've got a lot of hope. But they could also be showing me a rainbow because maybe this past loved one and this person used to watch rainbows together all the time.
Yeah,
Right.
or that person sees rainbows all the time now since that person
and it's
passed.
a symbol to them that, you know, that spirit's close. So I think what they're saying to me right now is that there isn't a definitive answer, because what might come in as a symbol for us that we share with them might then translate again into, like you just said, they start seeing rainbows. Because I've had readings before, like personally, that I've received, and there's multiple layers of truth in that particular reading that will make sense to me years later. Like they'll say something and then I'll go, oh, and I'll think it means something. And then years later, I'll be like, oh, no, there it is.
Yeah.
That's what it meant. Yeah. So
I remember walking past a girl, and we went to this, I was at one of those spiritual places, which I never really go to. And there was rocks, and there was this one I looked at, it was called the bee rock. And I was just like, oh yeah, okay. And I just couldn't get my eyes off it. And normally I let the others all look at their crystals and I sort of stay away, but I kept going back and I ended up picking it up and looking at it, putting it back down again. And bees weren't one that I ever get. So I walked around past this lady and I could see the bee again. So I ended up stopping and doing a reading for her. It was in that environment that she was actually doing readings for people. So
right.
I said to her, oh, I've got someone here that wants to speak to you. And I said, this is going to sound really strange. It's a bee. And and it's a lady who's your mum, but says she's not your real mum. Anyway, the lady had said to her before she died, it was her lady who had brought her up, it wasn't her biological mum. And she had actually said to her, she's allergic to bees. But she said, so when I come back, I'm going to come back as a bee, as a joke. So, yeah, so it was really cool. So I'm in my head trying to figure out, what does bee mean? What does bee mean? And it meant nothing to me, obviously, but it was a direct. And she's like, oh my gosh, 100%, this is so real. Like, I know who this is. This is really funny. She said she'd come back as a bee. So yeah, that was kind of cool. But one I had recently that I hadn't had before was a little box. And so I saw the box. It was like kind of a gift wrapped but thing. And I was like, oh, I've got a box, and I could see it was like hidden. It was like something hidden inside a box. It's like hidden. And I have got boxes before when people hide something, or I see them attached to them on the side or something, and it's like a secret that they've got within themselves. So I kind of knew it was secret. But then it was really interesting because it opened up and it sort of like the content sort of flew out of it, which was nothing but just sort of like circles of energy. And I then realized afterwards that it actually was a family secret for a very long time. And before this person passed, the family secret was unveiled. And they went to the mother first and then they did to the children. So I could see that the wife knew it first and then the two children knew it after. So that was a new one for me to actually see. Yes, I know that's a secret, but now to actually see that the secret was told before the person passed. And they were just trying to validate, because it was something I didn't know, that this family secret was was an important kind of switch over in the life, and they really wanted to then discuss that, but they didn't tell me the secret during the reading, so I only found out afterwards what the secret was, and that there was even a secret. There was no kind of validations. They're just like going, oh, okay. And then so I kept doing the reading and found out by someone else like 2 weeks later, it just came up in the conversation, and they didn't even know I'd done a reading. So in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the secret. Like, that made so much sense. So I didn't even have to really understand what was happening in the reading, which was interesting for them to get validation and then to be able to move on with the rest of the discussion. So yeah, it was cool.
I've had recently, I don't know if this is so much symbols, but I've had a few interesting experiences that haven't happened to me before. One was this gal, she said, oh, I want to talk to this particular person. She said, but this person never comes through. And I'm like, never had a person not come through. I got this. I didn't.
Oh.
I'm like trying to reach this person, and they're like, no. And I'm like, no, seriously, like, why not? And they're like, no, it's just not the time. Like, it's just not the time right now. And which I find super interesting. I've never tried to connect to a particular spirit's energy and not been able to. Sometimes they'll come through kind of foggy or not not really clear. Like I could kind of see that this person was, but it just wasn't clear. And then the very next reading that I did, a question was asked, and spirit was like, no, you're not to weigh in on this. Just nope.
Yeah.
This isn't for you to even try to get information about it. It was right at the beginning of the reading. And I was like, so I don't know what you want to do here. I mean, we can keep going and see what comes through, or I can refund you. Like, you know, but spirit just whoop, nope. Like, you are not weighing into that. And I mean, I believe that happens because spirit has that, you know, the person wanting to kind of come to those answers will come to them, or it's part of their journey to come to those answers. But yeah, that was super interesting. I've had it before where like the veil's kind of pulled across and it's like, no, you're not to be weighing in on this. But yeah, it was 2 in a row.
Do you know whether they'd been to a lot of other mediums? Because obviously one of them had said that they'd been to a few.
I believe one of them had been to another medium, and this particular loved one didn't come through.
Yeah. Because I wonder whether they
weren't. It wasn't that they weren't there. It was nothing like that. It was just like, yeah, this just isn't the right time or something. So maybe there's something in this person's journey for this person to come forward.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, I think that there's timing of when sometimes people are like not getting on with their grieving or not getting past something, and because they're trying to connect to the other side, and then the other side's saying no, like, I'm not there anymore in a physical. You've actually got to go and deal with that and grieve through that and then come back and then we can connect. Whereas if they connect, then they become what they call medium junkies, who actually follow mediums around to every viewing that they've got. And it's not the right timing for them because they need to actually deal with the real physical grief. Yeah.
100%. And I will definitely get that when somebody has recently passed. If somebody needs to be going through sort of the grieving process, sometimes spirit will not come in very strong. Other things are different.
Yeah, I agree. And like the other thing is symbols with numbers. Like, do you see numbers all the time? Do you talk to people who see numbers?
So I'm a big numbers person. It started a long time ago where I can't think of her, Doreen Virtue. She used to have a deck of numbers, but she doesn't have it anymore. She took a lot of her stuff off of out of circulation. But there's this website, it's called Sacred Scribe. I don't, like, just Google Sacred Scribe numbers. but it has basically the vibration of numbers all the way up to like 1,000 and bigger, because each number in particular has a different meaning. So for me, 110% guaranteed, if some change is coming in my life or if change is needed, I get fives all the time. There is no way that there are this many 555 license plates everywhere I drive, right? Or every time I look at my phone, it's 555. And in fact, in like 30 seconds, my computer's about to say 555 because it's 555. But I get that religiously, or I'll be driving in traffic and say, I'll look at my clock and it'll say 6:21, and I'll look at the car beside me and the plate on the car will be 6:21.
Yeah.
So I'll get numbers like right beside each other. And then I just go to Sacred Scribe and I'll Google like Sacred Scribe number 621, and it gives this big explanation about what the number's about. I don't usually get them when I'm doing readings. I get them in my personal life.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So I get that. Well, I actually have had them in readings. I remember for someone I kept getting sixes, and another one I kept getting fours, and it was like 4 different things. So I have had them, but they're more a number than numbers, if that makes sense. But yeah, I see 111, I see 333. The other day I was when I go to this petrol station, I would fill up, and I filled up and it was $88.88. And I looked up, and for the first time I saw their phone number, which ended in 888. And then I looked at the petrol price, and it was $1.88.88. And I was just like, whoa, that, like, it was way too many to not. And I fill up there every day, and I'd never looked up at their big phone number with 888. I would have had no idea what their phone number was.
And that's exactly what happens for me. Is I don't drive around looking at my clock and looking at plates. Like, I don't. I just all of a sudden my attention will be drawn 555, or my attention will be drawn 222. So 555 for me is change. 888 is abundance, like usually financial. 222 is that you're in alignment. You're doing what you need to be doing. And there's a whole bunch more, but those are my very common ones that I will see.
Yeah, and it was interesting. My 888s came around the time when our house sold at full price. And yeah, and there's a few other things that happened, and a couple of weeks after that were all things in abundance, like, you know, both financial and people orientated in abundance. So it's like, it was spot on with what was happening in my life. So it was kind of like, I never really had the 8s. But yeah, 111, I often will come, and then I'll like feel someone around me. So it's almost like the spirits around, or if I'm walking and I'm thinking, oh, I just need you to be with me today, or whatever, I just need guidance here, I'll then see 111s everywhere. And they say that's the angel's number. So it's one that when you see people around. 333 is interesting because I often wake up, I'll go through periods of waking up at 333 in the morning. And that's an interesting one for me, but it's a similar thing. It's a similar thing for guidance. So yeah, it's cool. But definitely, even if you see, as you said, like 621 or whatever, if you Google them, you'll often find that they're on point with something that's happening in your life. My girlfriend and I, we are often sending each other just numbers.
And so for me, 555, I already know major life changes are coming. So I used to get 555 and I would be like, fuck. No, I don't want another change. But it will sort of be like say I see a particular number, and I'm thinking about my job, and then I see 555. You have to stop for a second and reflect on what is it that I was just thinking about, or what was it I pondering when I saw 723 3 times in a row right beside each other, you know. So I do find that does it, but for me 555 is very much plot twist.
Yeah. I don't know if
juice
I've
is
said
coming.
this. We've actually had podcasts in the past. So if you go back to series 1, if you're interested in the psychic symbols even more, we've talked about symbols throughout a few of our different podcasts. And I don't know if I've said this in the past, but I went walking one day through, we've got this beautiful bit of land, and there's a Indigenous Aboriginal midden that's in there. And I went walking and it was just stunning. I was taking photos, and I got to this spot where there was white feathers all just in a row for ages. And I'd already I could feel spirit around me. So it was quite a spiritual sort of journey that I was walking on. And I remember taking photos of the things. And before I got in there, on Indigenous land, they don't always like you taking photos. We own the land. So there's no one sort of giving guidelines other than us. So I always say, if I'm not meant to take a photo, please don't let it work. And I took about 10 photos of these feathers, and I was just amazed how they were in this whole line that I was walking with. Anyway, I got back and I'd probably taken 30 photos in the day, and not one of the white feather photos had turned out. And I could see that that was a true symbol for me. And I do see white feathers around when someone dies. Or I had a beautiful one with a girlfriend of mine with butterflies, and it came inside and it danced around on my little iPad while she sang I Can Sing a Rainbow. And that was just stunning. And whenever I think of her, I see butterflies, and there's certain times where I can feel her around when I see the butterflies. So yeah, so for people, my sister, she gets a little, I can't think what, the willy wagtail, that wherever she lives, they're around, and I can feel my nana's and my auntie's presence around that house all the time, and I know that they're there with her. So when you see birds, when you start seeing feathers, if you see numbers, your hashtag homework is to actually look them up, like look up what does that mean, or just pause for a minute and see whether you can intuitively feel what is trying to be told, whether it's just that they're just trying to say that they're there with you, like a spirit's way of saying, I'm here. Yeah.
The other thing that I get, that I was just going to say for symbols, is I'll get a red rose if this is a love relationship. Like I'll get a lot of love. I'll get a red wagon if this person was with them in childhood. I get a very particular granny if it's a grandmother. I get a particular look, but then I have to be like, wait, is this how this person actually looks? Or is this just you guys telling me that this is a granny, like a Nana type thing? But a big one too for me, Nettie, is animals. And I actually have a book, Animal Spirit Guides. Just the other day, I was doing tarot with a friend, and I don't know tarot. I don't understand it. It's just something that I haven't learned. Maybe I'm supposed to be. But what I do with animals and with tarot is I say, okay, give me the card. I'll take the card, but I want it to relate to the book, because I'm not necessarily getting, like, I don't know what a King of Wands or whatever means. So I say, refer me to the book. But the same thing happens with animals. I'll see a hummingbird, and a hummingbird usually means like be able to roll with the punches in life. Like your life's going to be going a bit topsy-turvy over the next couple days. Just be able to roll with it and fill your life with flowers and beauty, for the next couple days. And guaranteed that's something that I need. Or I'll see, randomly I'll see like a beaver, and then I'll look up beaver in my book, and it'll totally resonate. So those are the other symbols that I get. So I love the hashtag homework. Let's absolutely have people do that. The animals and all that stuff can be looked up online. And I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for joining us. We love these 20-minute short podcasts, and we will see y'all soon. Take care.